The galaxy is vast and beautiful, a tapestry of light and life. But in the silence between the stars, in the forgotten corners of the cosmos, something waits, something ancient, something hungry. This isn't the Star Wars of heroes and hope. This is the Star Wars of the dark, the unseen. It's the story of things that crawl in the shadows of Coruscant's Undercity, the entities that whisper in the void, and the horrors that twist flesh and shatter minds. You've heard the legends. Now, listen closely. Let the darkness in. And pray you don't dream of what lurks beyond the light. These are Star Wars horrors to have nightmares to. Chapter 1. The Cosmic Abyss and the Shattering of the Mind. Of all the unsettling legends whispered in dimly lit cantinas and passed from one terrified pilot to another, none hold a more chilling weight than the stories of the Star Weirds. These are not mere ghosts or apparitions. They are something far more ancient and malevolent. Scholars of a macabre bent believe they are the psychic echoes of Force-sensitive beings, their minds shattered by the isolation and terror of dying alone in the unforgiving void. Others propose a far more terrifying theory that Star Wars are native entities of the cosmos itself, ancient predators that have existed for eons in the unlit gulfs between worlds, and who see sentient life as nothing more than a passing meal. Whatever their origin, their purpose is singular and terrifying: to hunt and consume the living. A Star Weird's attack is a slow, methodical descent into madness. It begins with a feeling, a subtle creeping sense of being watched that no sensor array can possibly detect. As a vessel drifts through an unmapped sector far from the comforting warmth of a sun, a psychic pressure begins to build, an oppressive, suffocating weight on the mind. Then the whispers begin. These are not audible sounds, but invasive thoughts that claw their way into the crews, consciousness preying on their deepest fears and regrets. A pilot may become convinced that the hum of the engine is a death rattle, while a crewman is tormented by the vision of a loved one's face twisted into a silent, accusing sneer. The Star Weird's psychic presence magnifies a sentient's own inner demons, making them believe their closest comrades are plotting against them, or that the ship itself is a coffin about to implode. This psychological torment culminates in the Star Weirds. Shriek, a telepathic scream that exists only within the victim's head. It is a sound that feels less like a noise and more like a physical force, tearing a person's sanity apart, leaving them with nothing but raw animalistic terror. In this state of complete mental collapse, the Star Word begins to manifest its physical form. They appear as tall skeletal figures, their eyes glowing with a cold, malevolent light in the absolute blackness. Their bodies seem to ripple and shimmer, as if they are made of the very darkness around them, and their hands end in razor-sharp talons that are not of flesh, but of solidified fear. They are capable of phasing through the hull of a starship, as if it were air. A silent spectral presence materializing in the middle of a corridor or hovering just outside a viewport, their glowing eyes a promise of oblivion. The Star Weird's touch is a final horrifying act. It does not kill with a slash or a blow, but with an act of pure life force siphoning. A Star Word drains the very essence from its victim, leaving behind a desiccated, withered husk of a body. The cold, empty shell is all that remains of a sentient being that was consumed by a predator that feeds on despair and terror. For a pilot stranded in the cosmic abyss, the sight of those glowing eyes is a chilling reminder that in the profound and unforgiving silence of space, the most terrifying Thing of all is not being alone, but being hunted. But the star weirds are not the only terror born of the great void. They are a symptom of a deeper, more profound sickness that permeates the galaxy's forgotten corners. It is the horror of the very environment itself, a landscape of reality-bending phenomena that can warp a sentient's mind and soul just as easily as a starward's psychic shriek. This is the horror of the unknown made manifest, a place where the laws of physics are not a constant, but a cruel, twisted joke. No place embodies this more completely than the Cathal Rift, located far beyond the borders of any known galactic power. The Rift is a region of space so corrupted by an unknown cosmic force that it defies all rational understanding. To enter the Rift is to surrender to a place where cause and effect are meaningless, where the stars themselves shimmer with an unnatural light, and where the most terrifying threats are not creatures, but the echoes of one's own mind turned against them. Navigating the Rift is a near impossible feat as star charts become gibberish, and sensor readings are twisted into nonsense. Pilots report seeing ancient starships that were lost centuries ago, only to watch them vanish into thin air. Time itself seems to become a fluid, malleable thing, with some vessels reporting years passing in what felt like days, and others experiencing a lifetime of torment in a matter of moments. The true horror of the Cathal Rift, however, is not its physical properties, but its psychological effect on the minds of its inhabitants. The swirling, reality-warping energy of the Rift is said to induce powerful hallucinations, a kind of waking nightmare fueled by a sentient's deepest-seated fears. A crew might be tormented by the phantom laughter of a dead child, the relentless, cold accusation of a past failure, or the constant gnawing presence of a malevolent entity that seems to exist just beyond the edge of their peripheral vision. The Rift preys on loneliness and guilt, turning a starship into a claustrophobic prison where a person's own mind becomes their tormentor. There are legends of entire crews driven to insanity, their minds shattering under the strain of a reality that refused to stay consistent. Some have been found raving, describing a world where their families never existed, or where they committed heinous acts they never could have conceived of. And then there are the Karen, a species of sentient beings said to have evolved in the deepest, darkest pockets of the Cathal Rift near a cluster of black holes. Their name, a nod to the ancient mythology of the ferrymen of the dead, is fitting. The Karen are not physically terrifying, but philosophically so. They believe that all life in the universe is a mistake, a cosmic anomaly that exists only to feed the void. To them, the only true purpose of a sentient being is to find their way to a black hole and cease to exist, returning to the primordial emptiness from which they believe all things came. Encountering the Karen is a dialogue with absolute nihilism, a conversation that can shatter the soul more effectively than any weapon. Their whispers and strange hypnotic telepathy are a siren call to oblivion, a chilling proposition that in the face of the universe's ultimate indifference, the only rational act is to embrace death. The Cathal Rift, with its reality-bending horrors and philosophical predators, is a testament to the fact that the galaxy's deepest fears are not always about monsters with claws and teeth. Sometimes they are about the complete breakdown of everything we hold to be true: the laws of physics, the sanctity of our own memories, and the very meaning of our existence. These are the horrors that haunt the minds of those who return broken and scarred with stories of a place where a ship can sail for a century in a single moment, and where the deepest terror is not a monster in the dark, but but the monster of your own mind gazing back from the endless abyss. Chapter 2. The Black Core of the Sentient Heart. In the early oppressive days of the Galactic Empire, the galaxy descended into a grim period known as the Dark Times. Hope was a dying flicker, and the Empire's cruel grip allowed for a kind of evil to flourish that was unchecked by law or conscience. It is within this moral vacuum that we find one of the most horrifying stories in all of Star Wars legends, the tale of the Jedi Dash Genir and the Nosorian Freedom Fighter Bomo Greenmark. Their journey was a descent into a nightmare, a desperate search for Bomo's enslaved wife and daughter that became a grim odyssey through the galaxy's darkest underbelly. The first horror of their journey was the cold, indifferent cruelty of the slave trade. They arrived too late to the prison where Bomo's wife was being held, only to learn she had died, protecting their daughter from a life of bondage. But this was merely a prologue to the true nightmare. Following a trail of clues and rumors, they tracked the daughter to her last known location, a lavish estate belonging to a wealthy noble. This man, a figure of immense power and obscene wealth, represented the absolute moral rot of the era. He saw life not as a gift, but as a commodity, a thing to be bought, sold, and in this case consumed. God, it was here in the gilded halls of a monster that the full, soul-crushing weight of the horror was revealed. The daughter, the one beacon of hope Bomo had clung to, was not just killed, she had been eaten. The wealthy noble, in an act of depravity so profound it defies all reason, had purchased the girl not as a slave, but as an ingredient for a grotesque feast. The panels from the comic series that depicted this moment are not of a monstrous beast or a supernatural entity, but of a man's face contorted in a silent scream of agony as he grapples with the unconscionable truth. Bomo's pain is not a fear of the unknown. It is the absolute crippling horror of knowing the exact terrible fate of his child, a life that was extinguished not in battle or by disease, but to sat a nobleman's depraved and cannibalistic appetite. Chapter 3. The Flesh Ruined by the Dark Side. If the cold, silent void is the horror of the mind and the soul, then the dark side's corruption is the horror of the flesh. It is the insidious terror that begins with a physical transformation, a grotesque perversion of life itself that twists the familiar and the beloved into something monstrous and unrecognizable. The dark side is a cancer that seeks not only to dominate, but to mutate and contort the organic into abominations that defy all natural order. This chapter delves into the biological nightmares of the galaxy, the plagues and creatures that are born not from evolution, but from a deliberate malevolent act of malice. Perhaps the most infamous and visceral example of this is the Blackwing virus, a pathogen so malevolent it is less a biological agent and more a manifestation of the dark side's will to corrupt and destroy. Developed in secret by Imperial scientists in their desperate search for a new terrifying super-weapon, the virus was designed to reanimate the dead, turning them into a new kind of soldier. But the result was a horror far beyond their control. A person infected with Blackwing is not just a zombie, they are a host for a sentient hive-minded plague. The virus reanimates the corpse, imbuing it with superhuman strength and an unnatural malice. The flesh becomes a mottled purple-black canvas of decay, the eyes glowing with a sick yellow light that betrays a malevolent intelligence within. Infected, known as death troopers, are driven by an insatiable hunger to kill, and a single bite from them is enough to spread the virus, turning more of the living into the undead. The horror of the Blackwing virus is a contained nightmarish reality, a star destroyer adrift in the silent blackness, its living crew hunted by their dead comrades, their former friends and brothers, in arms, now unthinking, unstoppable instruments of a viral darkness. The terror lies in the inescapable intimacy of the threat. It is the grotesque transformation of a friend into an enemy, a living reminder that in the galaxy's darkest corners, death is not an end, but a terrifying beginning. The virus itself seems to possess a perverse consciousness, a collective intelligence that delights in the suffering and fear it inflicts. It is a biological weapon with a soul, and that soul is pure, unadulterated darkness. But the Blackwing virus is not the only horror of the flesh. Millennia before the Empire, the ancient Sith used their dark powers to corrupt life on a fundamental level, creating a terrifying legion of Sith spawn. These were creatures warped through sorcery and alchemy into grotesque bioengineered nightmares. The rat ghouls are a prime example of this. Once a normal sentient species, they were transformed by the Sith into ravenous feral beasts. A single bite or scratch from a rat ghoul is enough to infect a person with the plague, turning them into a rat ghoul themselves within hours. The victim's bones and muscles twist and contort, their skin becomes a leathery hide, and their mind is replaced by a bestial hunger. The Ratchul plague is a biological weapon that turns the very victims of the plague into its spreaders, creating an ever-expanding army of monsters that feels no pain and knows only a primal rage. The horror here is both personal and apocalyptic, the fear of becoming the very thing you are fighting, a monster with your face and your memories, but without your soul. The transformation is not quick or merciful. It is a slow, agonizing process where the victim is forced to feel their own body betray them, their bones breaking and reforming, their thoughts dissolving into a mindless hunger. They are trapped within their own flesh, a silent spectator to their own monstrous rebirth. The Ratchul plague is a physical wound on the galaxy, an ever-present reminder that even the most benevolent of beings can be twisted and corrupted into a weapon of pure evil. The Sith's biological tinkering did not stop at flesh. They also created the techno-beasts, a horrifying fusion of machine and organic matter. Through dark alchemy, they infected living creatures with the techno-virus, causing their bodies to reject their organic forms and become grotesque cyborgs. Unlike a normal cyborg who uses technology to augment their body, a techno-beast is a living being whose flesh is at war with an invasive, corrupting technology. The result is a creature of immense power, but also immense pain, a constant state of biological and mechanical conflict. Their bodies are a collage of metal plating, sparking wires, and pulsating, rotting flesh. The techno-beasts represent the ultimate technological horror, where the line between life and machine is not a celebrated symbiosis, but a forced, agonizing mutation. They are a terrifying testament to the Sith's desire to not just control, but to completely pervert and desecrate the very essence of life, leaving behind a horrifying synthesis of flesh and metal that serves only the will of its dark creators. They are an eternal screaming testament to the agony of a body turned against itself, a living machine that longs for the peace of death, but is denied it by the very power that created it. These dark side creations represent a profound perversion of nature. They are a physical manifestation of the Sith's core belief that life is a tool to be manipulated and broken, that the natural order is meant to be overthrown, and that true power lies in the ability to create and control nightmares. The horror of the flesh is a raw, visceral fear that reminds us that even our own bodies, our very selves, can become the enemy. And in a galaxy where the dark side is always lurking ready to corrupt, nothing is safe from this vile transformation. But this perversion of the flesh is not always a violent, loud affair. Sometimes it is subtle, insidious, and silent. This brings us to the Anzadi, a species of ancient, near-immortal beings that feed on the very life force of sentience. The Anzadi are often mistaken for normal humanoids, but their true nature is that of psychic vampires. They hunt for a specific form of sustenance they call soup, which is the living brain matter and psychic energy of their victims. The horror of the Anzadi is not their physical strength, but their cunning and their patience. They are masters of hypnotism and subtle mind control, able to make their victims believe they are a trusted friend, an alluring lover, or a savior. They will get close, earn the trust of their target, and then in a quiet, secluded moment, they will strike. With a hidden proboscis that emerges from their cheeks, they will drain the soup from their victim's brain, leaving behind a hollow, empty shell of a person. The act itself is a slow, terrifying violation of the mind and body. The victim, hypnotized and powerless, is often aware of what is happening, but completely unable to resist. Their last moments filled with the horrifying realization of their own slow, quiet consumption. The Anzadi have a particular taste for force sensitives, whose soup is more potent and fulfilling. Their existence is a dark mirror to the Jedi and the Sith. They are Force users who have perverted their connection to the Force into a grotesque form of vampirism. They are the quiet, unassuming predators of the galaxy, a chilling reminder that the greatest threats often do not announce themselves with a shout, but with a whisper. Chapter 4. The Unseen Maw Beneath Coruscant. The galaxy is a place of infinite wonders, of pristine capital worlds bathed in sunlight, and 1,000 glorious spires reaching for the stars. But every monument to civilization casts a long, dark shadow. On Coruscant, the galactic heart, that shadow is not a metaphor. It is a physical, terrifying reality that stretches for miles into the planet's core, a labyrinth of forgotten levels, and festering decay where the light of a single sun has not touched in millennia. Here, a diverse and terrifying ecosystem of monsters has evolved, not from the natural order, but from the city's own decay. This final chapter explores a horror that is not cosmic or supernatural, but primal and monstrous. A bestiary of predators that have been born from Coruscant's rot and are far more than just a myth dot in the deepest, most forgotten caverns of the planet's foundations. The greatest horrors are often a tragic reflection of ourselves. This is the case with the Coruscant ogre, a creature that stands as a grim testament to the fact that when a sentient being is left to rot in the depths, they can devolve into something monstrous. The ogre is not an alien. It is a human, or a near-human, whose lineage has been trapped in the lower levels for so long that its very biology has been warped by centuries of inbreeding, toxic runoff, and a complete lack of sunlight. Their bodies are massive and hunched, their skin a pallid, unhealthy gray, stretched taut over bulging muscles and misshapen bone. Their eyes are a sickly, rheumy yellow, their once human intelligence replaced by a primitive, bestial cunning. The ogre is a tragic horror, a living reminder that civilization's neglect can create a monster out of a person. They are territorial and incredibly strong, capable of tearing a sentient in half with their massive, clawed hands. Their roar is a deep, guttural sound that can shake the very foundation of the tunnels, a warning that you have entered there. Domain, a warning that most people do not live to heed. The ogre's hunting habits are a brutal, macabre dance of terror. They do not kill with malice. They kill with the simple, unthinking hunger of an animal. To encounter a Coruscant ogre is to stare into a mirror of your own worst fears. The fear of what we might become if we were left to rot in the darkness. The fear that the line between man and beast is not a sacred barrier, but a fragile thing. That can be erased by a single, cruel twist of fate. But the ogre's horror is a primal one, a brutal force of nature in a world without nature. The true, creeping horror lies in the existence of the Khan, a blind, zombie-like creature that is a mutated offshoot of a humanoid species. Unlike the ogre, the Khan is a more visceral and insidious predator. It is a creature born of disease and mutation, its body a gaunt, skeletal frame with patches of rotting flesh and exposed bone. Its eyes are milky white, completely sightless, but its sense of smell and hearing are unnaturally acute. The Khan hunts in silence, a relentless stalker that can feel the slightest vibration through the grimy metal floors, tracking its prey with an unwavering predatory focus. The horror of the Khan is the chilling realization that it is a physical manifestation of a biological apocalypse, a predator that feels no pain and has no fear, only an insatiable hunger that drives it to pursue its prey to the very end. Its chittering, rasping breaths are a sound of pure dread, a sound that signals a death that is not quick or merciful, but slow, agonizing, and terrifyingly intimate. To be hunted by a Khan is to enter a world of pure sensory terror, where every sound you make is a beacon, every move you take is a death sentence, and the only thing standing between you and a grotesque, living corpse is a few feet of distance and a breath of silence. It is a horror that challenges the very concept of life and death, a creature that is a mockery of both, and a grim reminder that in the depths of Coruscant, death is not always the end. Sometimes it is a new beginning, a horrifying rebirth into a life of endless hunger and decay. And finally, there are the sewer trolls, a well-known creature that lives in the toxic runoff. While not as intelligent as the ogre or as insidious as the Khan, the sewer troll is a persistent and terrifying threat. It is a massive, shambling beast of bone and muscle that has adapted to live on the nutrient-rich runoff of the upper levels. They are a physical embodiment of Coruscant's rot, their skin a mottled, gray canvas of scars and festering wounds, glistening with foul moisture. Their hands end in massive, clawed appendages, their teeth are blunt, bone-crushing instruments, and their entire bodies are a grotesque testament to the destructive power of the city's waste. They are unthinking, feral monsters that know nothing but hunger, their primal rage a terrifying force of nature in a world without nature. These creatures are a grim testament to the fact that when a civilization neglects its waste, that waste will inevitably become a predator. They are territorial and incredibly strong, and to encounter one is to face a brutal, unthinking beast that has been born from the city's own decay. The sewer trolls represent a kind of animalistic horror, a bestial brutality that is a chilling contrast to the technological coldness of the world around them. They are a living, breathing paradox, a primeval beast in the heart of the most advanced city in the galaxy, a final, horrifying reminder that for all the light and life of the galaxy, the true darkness often lies beneath our feet, festering and waiting. Chapter 5: Abyssal Gods and the madness of eternity. The horrors explored thus far, be they the spectral parasites of the void or the flesh-warping plagues of the dark side, are, in a sense, a scale we can comprehend. They are creatures, viruses, or distortions of a reality that, for all its terror, remains fundamentally familiar. But there exists in the galactic subconscious a deeper, more primal dread. This is the realm of beings that transcend the very concepts of life and death, light and dark, existing as a terrible living theology. They are the abyssal gods and cosmic entities that do not so much exist within the galaxy as they are a part of its fundamental, broken nature. They are beings that are less monsters and more a terrible, sentient force of chaos, and their very existence suggests a reality far more horrifying than any we have yet imagined dot at the apex of this pantheon. Of dread is Abeloth, a name that should be spoken only in hushed, nervous tones. Abeloth is not a creation of the dark side, nor is she a natural entity. She is an abomination born of a perverted balance, a god horror that stands as a testament to the dangers of tampering with the very core of the Force, the ancient legends of the Mortis gods, a powerful family that embodied the light, dark, and balance of the Force. Speak of a mother who, in a desperate attempt to control her chaotic children, committed an act that shattered the very fabric of her existence. She bathed in the pool of knowledge and drank from the font of power, acts that did not make her a god of balance, but instead a grotesque, immortal entity of infinite chaos and madness. She is the mother, but a monstrous, broken version of that title, forever oscillating between a desperate craving for love and an insatiable desire to inflict pain. Abeloth's horror is not that of a predator, but of a broken, insane deity. She exists in a state of eternal, agonizing paradox, a being of immense power who is also a prisoner of her own shattered psyche. Her true power lies in her ability to manipulate the very fabric of reality, to create and destroy life on a whim, but her creations are always born of her own twisted mind. The abominations, creatures born from her essence, are grotesque parodies of life, beings of immense power and suffering that exist only to serve her will. They are not merely monsters. They are the physical representations of a god's shattered psyche, a living testament to the fact that true power, unchecked, leads only to monstrousness. Abeloth represents the ultimate terror, the fear that the very forces that govern the universe are not balanced and just, but are instead ruled by a mad, eternal goddess of chaos. Her existence makes a mockery of all light and dark, all good and evil, suggesting that in the end, the only thing that truly matters is the whim of a monster. Her imprisonment within the maw, a cluster of black holes, is a testament to the scale of her threat. Even from her prison, her very presence is enough to cause planets to go mad and force users to feel a deep, unsettling dread. She is a god of pure negation, a being that craves to unmake everything in a desperate, mad search for a love she can never find. She is the ultimate existential horror, for she suggests that all of existence is but a fleeting illusion in the face of a god's unending despair. Another form of cosmic terror is the Mingal, a being so alien and ancient that its very existence is a violation of the natural order. The Mingal is a sentient, hive-minded protoplasmic goo that has existed since the dawn of the galaxy. It is a slow, methodical invader that spreads across planets, not through conquest, but through assimilation. Its horror is subtle and insidious. It latches on to living beings, not to kill them, but to possess them, turning their bodies into puppets for its collective consciousness. It will slowly absorb a person, using their flesh to spread its own and their voice to lure more victims. The Mingal represents a profound body horror that goes beyond a simple monster. It is the fear of losing your identity, of becoming a voiceless part of a greater malevolent whole. A person infected by the Mingal retains enough of their consciousness to be aware of their own assimilation. A silent, screaming mind trapped within a body that is no longer their own, forced to watch as their flesh and blood become a tool for the monster's spread. The process is not quick or merciful. It is a slow, agonizing corruption where the victim's body becomes a canvas for the creature's grotesque art. The Mingal is a patient, ancient terror that has no malice or hatred, only a simple, unending need to grow. It is a cold, biological imperative that views all life as a resource to be used, and its very existence challenges the idea that life is sacred. It is a reminder that in the oldest, darkest parts of the galaxy, there are things that exist that are so fundamentally different from us that our hopes, dreams, and lives are less than meaningless to them. They are simply fuel dot. And finally, there is the chilling enigma of Waru. While not as well known as Abeloth, Waru represents a unique form of cosmic dread. Waru is an extra-dimensional being, a creature of pure, raw energy that slipped into our reality through a temporal rift. It manifested as a swirling vortex of golden light and energy, and its power was immense. Waru's existence was a parasitic one. It consumed energy, draining it from technology and life itself to sustain its physical form in our dimension. The horror of Waru is its fundamental difference from all life as we know it. It is a being that is utterly indifferent to sentience, seeing them as nothing more than a source of fuel. Its presence caused a slow, agonizing death for anyone nearby, as their life force was slowly siphoned away to feed the entity's incomprehensible needs. Waru's existence is a powerful metaphor for the galaxy's cruel indifference. It is a reminder that there are things beyond our understanding, creatures that do not hate or love, but simply exist to consume, and that in the face of such a being, the most valiant of heroes are little more than a flicker of light, a temporary snack in a universe of infinite hunger. Waru is not a monster that can be reasoned with or fought in any conventional sense. It is a fundamental cosmic force that is a complete anathema to our reality. Its existence suggests that our universe is a thin veil, and that on the other side, there are things that are not evil, but simply wrong. They are beings whose very presence unravels our reality, and who see our life and our dreams as nothing more than a fleeting source of energy. This is a horror that surpasses all others, for it suggests that the fundamental nature of the galaxy itself is a terrible, broken thing, and that all life is nothing more than a fleeting illusion in the face of a god's unending despair. It is a profound philosophical dread that makes the fear of death feel like a simple, petty concern. The ultimate horror of Waru is that it is not evil. It simply is. It is the universe's way of reminding us that our existence is a fragile and temporary anomaly, a brief moment of light in an eternity of consuming darkness. Chapter 6: Darth Makis and the Throne of Unending Pain. The galaxy's horrors have come in many forms. The silent predator of the void, the grotesque mutation of the dark side, and the dehumanizing brutality of the machine. But there is a horror that surpasses all of these occult, calculated evil that fuses the Force's power with the precision of technology to inflict not just pain, but absolute spiritual and psychological torment. This chapter delves into the nightmare legacy of Darth Magus, a Sith Lord of the Old Republic, whose ultimate creation was a testament to the fact that the most terrifying weapons are not those that destroy the body, but those that annihilate the soul. Darth Magus was a figure unlike any other in the Sith Empire. Where other lords sought to dominate through sorcery or brute force, Magus was a technological savant, an evil genius who saw the Force not as a mystical power, but as a resource to be harnessed and weaponized through engineering. She was the dark side's own mad scientist, a Sith who believed that true power lay in the perfection of a machine designed to inflict a single, perfect form of suffering. Her most infamous creation was a device that transcended all conventional instruments of torture, an unholy fusion of cybernetics, Sith alchemy, and pure, unadulterated malice. The device itself was a work of twisted art. It was a chair, a throne, of polished black metal adorned with arcane circuitry and fine, needle-like cables that would connect to a victim's temples and spine. Its appearance was deceptive in its elegance, hiding a purpose so vile it sickened even other Sith. The device's function was to interface directly with a sentient's connection to the Force, using their own spiritual essence as a conduit for agony. It was not a physical instrument of pain. It was a mental and spiritual one. The needles did not pierce the skin. They pierced the very fabric of the victim's soul, using their own Force signature to orchestrate a personalized symphony of pain. The horror of Mekis's device was in its precision. It could isolate and amplify sentient's deepest fears and regrets, turning their most cherished memories into a source of excruciating torment. A Jedi's love for a fallen master could be twisted into a vivid, repeating hallucination of their death, played out in agonizing detail. A soldier's memory of a battlefield could become a perpetual, unescapable moment of terror and despair. The device did not just inflict pain, it made a person's own life, their own mind, and their own soul their prison. It was a tool of absolute, psychological and spiritual destruction, designed not just to extract information, but to annihilate the victim's will, leaving them a broken, empty husk. Darth Mekis's torture device represents the ultimate perversion of both the Force and technology. It is the black heart of a civilization's potential for evil, a horrifying reminder that the tools we create can become weapons of unimaginable cruelty when placed in the wrong hands. The device's legacy is not in its power to destroy, but in its ability to corrupt the very essence of a person, to turn their most sacred truths into a source of unending agony. It is a chilling testament to the fact that in the hands of a true monster, the most powerful and terrible weapon is not a lightsaber or a starship, but a person's own mind turned against itself. Chapter 7. The Biambiad Order and the Prison of the Jar. The galaxy's horrors have come in many forms, from the physical to the psychological, from the monstrous to the mechanical. But there is a horror that transcends all of these, one that is born not of malice or destruction, but of a profound and misguided spiritual pursuit. This chapter explores a nightmare of enlightenment, a philosophy so twisted it becomes an instrument of terror. The Jimong Order, their pursuit of ascension, is a testament to the chilling truth that the most terrifying things in the galaxy are often those that are self-inflicted, a perversion of the mind and body in the name of a higher truth. The Bumanor Order was an ancient monastic order that sought to achieve true enlightenment by separating themselves from the physical world. Their core belief was that the body, with its constant desires, needs, and attachments, was a cage for the mind, and that true spiritual freedom could only be achieved by severing that connection. Their ultimate goal was a process they called ascension, a cold, surgical procedure where the brain was removed from the body and placed into a nutrient-filled jar. The brain, now disembodied, would then be connected to a spider-like droid. Body, a grotesque and shuffling vessel for their new enlightened existence. The sight of a Bolmer monk, a brain in a jar scuttling on mechanical legs, is a profound form of body horror, a chilling perversion of life that blurs the line between organism and machine. But the horror of the Bolmer order is not just in their appearance. It is in the profound psychological torment that lies at the heart of their philosophy. The monks believed that once the brain was separated from the body, it would be free to contemplate the universe without distraction. But what if the ascension failed? What if a monk underwent the irreversible procedure, only to find that their physical desires and attachments had not been shed, but simply amplified? This is the ultimate nightmare of the Bolmer order. A sentient being trapped in a jar, still plagued by the hunger, the fear, and the rage that they sought to escape, but now with no body to express it. Their disembodied mind, a silent, screaming prisoner in a jar, is a living testament to a spiritual journey gone horribly wrong. A ghost that is both living and dead, forever tormented by the very things they sought to transcend. This is a horror of absolute sensory deprivation and profound, unceasing dread, a fate far worse than death. And the Bolmer order's horror takes an even darker turn when it is used not for enlightenment, but for punishment. In a galaxy of unimaginable cruelty, where an execution might be a merciful end, the Bolmer order's ascension could be used as a sentence. Imagine a criminal, a political enemy, or a rival being forced to undergo the procedure, condemned to an eternal, disembodied existence. Their punishment is not a quick, violent end, but a perpetual, silent torment. Their brain, stripped of all sense and feeling, is left to languish in a jar, its consciousness a flickering echo in a universe it can no longer interact with. It is a form of spiritual lobotomy, a terrifyingly final act of control that makes a mockery of free will. The Bolmer order is a unique kind of horror, for it is a self-inflicted nightmare born of a perverted spirituality. It is a chilling reminder that the human pursuit of perfection can often lead to a profound and monstrous outcome, and that the most terrifying prisons in the galaxy are not always made of steel and durasteel, but of flesh, mind, and spirit, all turned against themselves. They are a testament to the fact that in the dark corners of the galaxy, the line between enlightenment and madness is a very thin one, and that the greatest horror of all is the fear of being truly and utterly alone, a silent, screening mind in a glass jar. Chapter 8. The Ghost in the Machine's Cage. The galaxy's horrors have been many. They have come from the silent void, from the raw power of the dark side, and from the festering decay of a planet's heart. But in the shadow of the Galactic Empire, a new terror was born, one that fused man and machine into a terrifying mockery of life. This chapter explores a horror that is neither entirely biological nor entirely supernatural, but a chilling fusion of both. The Phase Zero Dark Troopers. They are not simply droids, Nor are they soldiers. They are something far worse, a philosophical and psychological nightmare that challenges the very definition of a living being. The Phase Zero. Dark Troopers were the brainchild of General Rahl Mok, a man obsessed with creating a new kind of soldier for the Empire. His goal was to build an army that would combine the ruthlessness and efficiency of a battle droid with the strategic cunning and adaptability of a sentient being. His solution was a horrifying act of technological necromancy. The Phase Zero project did not use new recruits or clones. It used seasoned veterans, elite soldiers from the Clone Wars and the early days of the Empire who had been critically injured in battle. Their bodies, broken beyond conventional repair, became the raw material for a new kind of monster. The horror of the Phase Zero Dark Troopers lies in their creation. These veterans were not given life-saving cybernetics. They were given a new, terrifying existence. Their minds were subjected to a brutal and invasive process that erased their identities and memories, replacing their consciousness with a cold, unyielding programming. Their bodies were systematically dismantled, their organic parts replaced with a powerful and destructive robotic frame. They became a living ghost in a machine, their biological remnants, a brain, a heart, a few pieces of a spine trapped within a suit of armor that was not a shell, but a prison. They were the walking dead, not because they were reanimated, but because the men they once were had been systematically murdered and replaced with a program. The result was a super soldier that was as terrifying as it was tragic. A Phase Zero Dark Trooper possessed the strength of a fully mechanized droid, capable of wielding devastating weaponry and shrugging off blaster fire that would kill a man. But they also possessed a lingering, unsettling humanity. They moved with a tactical precision that no droid could replicate, a cruel echo of the soldiers they once were. The chilling part was the silence. They did not scream in battle, they did not cry out in pain, and they did not speak. There was no life behind the glowing red visor, only the cold, unthinking efficiency of a machine. Their silence was a testament to the ultimate horror of their existence. A living being that had been hollowed out, its soul replaced by code. They were a walking monument to the Empire's capacity for cold, calculated cruelty. The legacy of the Phase Zero Dark Troopers is a haunting one. They were not a success in the conventional sense, as their volatile nature and lingering humanity made them difficult to control. But they were a profound philosophical horror. They forced the galaxy to confront a terrifying question. At what point does a living being cease to be a person and become a machine? The Phase Zero Dark Troopers were a gruesome and permanent answer to that question. They were a living, breathing testament to the fact that the Empire did not just want to rule the galaxy. It wanted to erase the very essence of humanity, one soldier at a time. The horror of the machine's embrace is not in the metal or the weapons, but in the tragic, silent scream of the men trapped within it. Chapter 9. The Shri Karai and the Final Consumption. The galaxy's horrors have come in many forms, each one a unique reflection of the dark side of existence. But all of them, from the monstrous to the mechanical, are driven by a purpose we can, to some degree, understand. A desire for power, a need for survival, or a tragic perversion of self. But there exists a horror that transcends all of these. A cosmic and biological nightmare that is driven by a purpose so alien and so profound that it makes a mockery of all life in the galaxy. This chapter explores the ultimate existential dread, the Shri Karai a living plague that is a civilization's final, silent, and horrifying feast. The Sri Ka-Rai are not a species in the conventional sense. They are a hive mind, a colossal, planet-sized swarm of crystalline, insectoid creatures that roam the silent void between galaxies. They are an ancient, terrifying force of nature, a biological imperative given a horrifying scale. Their horror lies in their simple, unthinking goal: total and complete consumption. They do not seek conquest, they do not crave power, and they do not hate. They simply eat. They are a hunger made manifest, a living cloud of devastation that devours all organic life in its path, leaving behind only the sterile rock of a dead world. The horror of their arrival is not a grand battle or a violent war. It is a quiet, creeping inevitability. The first sign is often a change in a planet's orbital sensors, a sudden, massive shadow that blocks out the stars. Then the swarm descends, a silent, swirling vortex of crystalline horrors that blankets a world. Their method of consumption is as terrifying as their scale. The Sri Ka-Rai do not use brute force. They use a horrifying biological precision. The individual creatures, each one a sharp, crystalline horror, begin to consume all organic matter on a molecular level. They strip the trees of their leaves, the animals of their flesh, and the sentience of their very bodies, leaving behind only the bleached bones and the stripped husks of a world that was once alive. The psychological horror of a horror of a horror, Sri Ka-Rai attack, is profound and absolute. Imagine being on a planet, watching as a living cloud descends from the heavens. You are not fighting an army. You are fighting a hunger. The blasters and the starships are useless against a foe that has no life, no mind, and no core to be destroyed. You are simply food. The terror is in the slow, silent realization that your world, your civilization, your hopes, and your dreams are nothing more than a temporary meal for a creature that has been eating for eons. The Sri Ka-Rai's final, horrifying gift is the inescapable knowledge that your life, for all its struggles and triumphs, is meaningless in the face of an unstoppable cosmic hunger. And in the end, all that remains is a silent, crystalline swarm, feasting on the remains of a civilization that was once so proud. A final, horrifying feast that leaves behind only silence and a dead, barren world. The galaxy is not what you thought. It is not safe. It is not kind. It is a place where nightmares walk in the skin of men, where gods of madness drift between the stars, where the very machines you trust can hollow you out and wear your corpse like a mask. These are the truths they don't want you to know, the horrors they hide behind the glow of holoscreens and the roar of starship engines. So sleep now, if you can. But remember, the dark is listening, and it remembers your name. Thanks for listening.